Let us begin with some Ekashlokis of Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. Ekam aksharam hrudi nirantaram bhasati svayam likyate katham Hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahmamatram yaham maham iti sakshat atmarupena bhati Hrudi vishamanasa svam chinvata majjata pavana chalanarodha atmanishto bhavatvam Deham mrण्मयव जडात्मकम् aham बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तत भावशुद्धि समये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः कोऽहं भावयुतः कुतो मरतिय दृष्टात्मनिष्टात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं Namo Ramana. Those were the Mangala Slokas for this attempt at communicating some of Bhagavan's teachings. If these three were the Mangala Slokas or invocatory verses for this speech or meditation, any work, spiritual or secular, begins with the Mangalam or dedication and these Mangala Shlokas can be of two broad kinds. One is based on Saguna Nirguna and The other is based on the intent behind, the purpose behind the Mangala Shloka. Saguna Nirguna is that the Supreme is invoked in manifest or as the unmanifest Supreme Being. We find in the three Ekashlokis that we could place as Mangalam or invocation, the three Ekashlokis of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. We found the first two, Ekam Aksharam Hridi Nirantaram Bhasate Swayam Likyate Katam Hridaya Kuhara Madhye. Both of them were of the Nirguna nature, Nirguna Brahman. And the third one, Soham Spurti Taya Arunachala Shivaha Purno Vibhati Swayam. This satsang is offered to Arunachala Shiva. When we inquire, who am I? Koham bhava yuta kuto varadhiya drishtatma nishtatmanam. When that attention is turned towards the self in the quest, who am I? Soham spurti taya Arunachala Shivaha Purno Vibhati Swayam. In answer to that quest, Arunachala Shiva himself will rise and answer as the Purna Vastu, as I. Those are the two types based on Saguna and Nirguna. The other classification we have, there could be many others, but as indicative classification, we seem to have in the various scriptural works the invocatory verses being of the nature of Ashirvadha. Ashirvadha in the sense a blessing. The invocation is a blessing. With a grateful and fulfilled heart, the Rishi or the author blesses the whole creation, blesses the whole of humanity, blesses the student and teacher community, or one such blessing, Ashirvada, could be the nature of or the intent behind the invocation. The second is a prayer. Invocation could be a prayer or a dhyana. Dhyana is to meditate. Dhyanam. Before we start the Sahasranamam, we do Dhyanam. On the Saguna Brahman, we invoke the Saguna Brahman through Dhyanam, meditation, prayer. And the third type is Vastu Nirnayam, or to indicate, Nirnayam could be seen as determination. We can take it as determination of the nature of reality. Vastu does not mean object here. Vastu Nirnayam could be determination of the nature of reality or pointer to the nature of reality. So those are the other three types. One is Saguna Nirguna, and the other three based on the lakshya or the aim are Ashirvada, Dhyana or Vastu Nirnaya. This invocation which we have taken up is the invocation of the work Ulladu Narpadu by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. This work has been translated into Sanskrit by Kavyakanta Vasishta Ganapati Muni, the Asukavi, with the title Satdarshanam. Ulladu Narpadu is translated as Satdarshanam. Sad is the Vastu or the reality or being, existence, that is Sad. Darshanam is realization or knowing. Saddarshanam is realization or knowing the Sadvastu, the supreme being. That is the title given by Kavyakanta Vasishta Ganapati Muni. The Tamil title is Ulladu. Ulladu is that which is, that which ever is, that which is. Since we relate more easily to time, we use the word that which ever is, Ulladu, Narpadu. In 40 verses, Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi, in 40 verses, the same Sadvastu is indicated. It is not that there are 40 Sadvastus. It is that in all the 40 verses, the same Sadvastu is indicated. To make it clearer, Bhagavan Ramana makes all the 40 verses into one Kalivenba. Kalivenba, the verses are in Venba meter, which is supposed to be very tough to compose. The rules for composing verses in Venba meter are of such nature that Ganapati Muni finds it difficult to compose verses in that meter. The Asukavi, the great one, he finds it difficult. Lakshman Sharma ji, one of the later translators, he also finds it difficult to even translate one of these verses with the rules of Venba. But Bhagavan, almost all his works you will find in Venba meter. Of course, the other meters are also there. Now, when we go to the invocation verse, what is so special? The invocation verse is about the Nirguna Brahman, about the Sadvastu. That is all right. In the other classification, it is of the nature of Vastu Nirnaya invocation. Vastu Nirnaya Mangala Sloka. So it is Vastu Nirnaya, the nature of the Supreme, the nature of the Sadvastu, the nature of reality is what is being shown, and also the meditation on that reality, or how to invoke it. How to invoke? Before we do Ganapati Puja, we invoke, we invite, give him seat, give him various offerings we will give to that divine invitee, to the divine guest, what all we should offer will be there in the mantra form. Now, how to invoke this reality, that which is, and what is the nature of the reality? The Vastu Nirnayam of the Nirguna Brahman is mentioned in the first Mangala Sloka. We are going to take that up. There is another Mangala Sloka for the verse. When the work was being composed and compiled, composed by Bhagavan, compiled by Mrugnar, this single Mangala Shloka was there, which we are going to see now. And there were 40 verses. So totally 41, including the Mangala Shloka. And in those years, 1927, 28, 29, Ganapati Muni was also available in the ashram. And as soon as the work is completed, the 40 verses and the first Mangala Shloka put together are shown to Ganapati Muni. And Ganapati Muni finds that the invocation is on Nirguna Brahman. And he feels there should be an invocation of the Saguna Brahman also, and peruses the whole work and finds one verse where Ishvara Nama is there. Mrityunjayam Mrityubhyashritanam Ahammatir Mrityumupaiti Purvam Atasvabhavat Amruteshu Teshu Katam Punar Mrityudhiyo Vakasha. So Mrityunjayam, the Ishvara is invoked as Mrityunjayam. So he suggests that that verse be moved as the second invocatory verse. And Bhagavan composes one more verse to fill the shortfall and moves that verse as the second invocatory verse. But we are going to take up the first invocatory verse today. So what is so unique about that? That it is about Nirguna Brahman. We saw the Ekashlokis also, two of them were of Nirguna Brahman. One had Arunachala Nama in it. This invocatory verse which we are going to see is of the nature of Vastu Nirnaya, of the nature of the determining or indicating the nature of the Supreme. There are many invocatory verses like that. So what is so unique about this invocatory verse which we are going to see, the invocatory verse to Satdarshanam Ulladu Narpadu, the uniqueness is that when Sri Lakshman Sharma undergoes the penance of studying and translating this work into Sanskrit, it takes about 4 years of penance for him with Bhagavan. And Bhagavan teaches him Tamil, as well as he makes him work and learn the nuances and also have it as his tapas, his sadhana, his nididhyasana, his vichara. And what all got completed in that period, how can we ever know? But then Bhagavan himself says that those 4 years of working on Ulladu Narpadu was the tapas of Sri Lakshman Sharma. To Lakshman Sharma, he says, and Lakshman Sharma says to us in his commentary, this is the uniqueness of the invocation. Lakshman Sharma ji says to us that Bhagavan has told him that the first invocatory verse is the complete essence of all the 40 verses, all the rest of the 40 verses and the other invocatory verse. It is an Ekashloki. It is a complete Vastu Nirnaya, not as an invocation alone, as a complete work in itself. The Upanishad is completely The Ramanopanishad of Ulladinarpadu, of Satdarshanam, is completely present in all its nuances, in all its essence, in that single invocatory verse. So that the Maharishi has suggested that those who do sadhana, we know that in the sannyasa dharma, they have the chaturmasya. And in chaturmasya, they have this practice. Many of the sannyasis, they take up a work like Satdarshanam for their chaturmasya. They don't go out, but they meditate on one work. Satdarshanam is one such work. And when you listen to the YouTube presentations of those, the sannyasis who have taken up meditation on Ulladinarpadu, they say that the readiness to grasp Ulladinarpadu comes after many, according to them, many Upanishads have been covered. But then Bhagavan, he doesn't put that condition. He says that if you meditate on these 40 verses and keep coming back to the first verse, if you meditate on the 40 verses, practice the Atma Vichara suggested as the sadhana, and come back and meditate on the first verse. Keep doing this. Meditate on the 40 verses. It may take a Chaturmasya period, it may take a year, it may take 5 months, it may take 3 months, it may take 10 days. But meditate on all the verses. Then come back and meditate on the first invocatory verse. Because understanding and abiding in the meaning of the first invocatory verse is completion of the intent of the whole work. That is the uniqueness of this invocatory verse, which we are going to take up. That the author of this work, Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharishi, he has suggested that the work is better meditated if gone through completely, then taken up as meditation on the first invocatory verse. Go through again, come back to the first invocatory verse. Why I am saying like this? Why can't the sadhana be over in one attempt? It can definitely be over in one attempt. There may be some sadhakas who just in reading the first 2 lines or second 2 lines of the invocatory verse, just by reading, they may get the anubhava. But then Ganapati Muni himself says that he has done crores and crores and crores of dhyana, japa, but still the meaning of tapas had not been completely understood. In the year 1907, when he first comes to Bhagavan, he says that, indicating that we should not look at the number of iterations till one completely abides in the meaning and the intent of the Maharishi's words. One should continue to meditate on the work, continue to do the sadhana of Atma Vichara. So that is the uniqueness, that if one can understand the invocatory verse, then the Rishi is saying you don't even need to go into the 40 verses. But when the meaning of the first verse is not understood, go through all the 40, they will prepare, they will mature, they will make the sadhaka move from attachment to the ignorance towards the light of the self. Each time one does Atma Vicharam, a little bit of the darkness of ignorance is removed, a little bit one moves towards the light of the self, says Bhagavan to Kapali Shastri. That is, without reference to what is the circumstance in which the sadhaka is present, the circumstance is completely ignored. Irrespective of the circumstance, one already moves a little bit from darkness to light. Let us see the first invocatory verse. Let me chant it in both Tamil and Sanskrit. Then we can try and explore it a little bit. This talk is not an aim or is not aimed at completely unraveling all the mysteries of that shloka, but to create an interest in the listener, to see the wonder and the directness of Bhagavan's teachings. So let me chant the verse in Tamil and then in Sanskrit. உள்ளதலதுள்ள உணர் உள்ளதோ உள்ள பொருள் உள்ளல்லற உள்ளத்தே உள்ளதால் உள்ளம் எனும் உள்ள பொருள் உள்ளல் எவன் உள்ளத்தே உள்ளபடி உள்ளதே உள்ளல் உணர்வாயே. சத்பிரத்யயா கின்னு விஹாய சந்தம் ஹ்ருத்யேஷ சிந்தாரஹிதோ ஹ்ருதாக்யஹ கதம் ஸ்மராமஸ்தமமேயம் ஏகம் தஸ்ய ஸ்மிருதிஸ்தத்ர திருடைவ நிஷ்டா. This translation is by Ganapati Muni. Sat pratyaya kinnu vihaya santam hrudyesha chintarahito hrudakyaha katham smaramastamameyam ekam tasya smritis tatra dridhaiva nishta. Before we go into the verse, let us see a simple, commonly experienced day-to-day happening. Nowadays we have the various types of iron boxes and it is our practice. Just before coming, I had ironed out this shirt. So, and it is common to have washing machines which twirl and twirl and twirl. And when we take out of the washing machine, many of them have dryers these days, especially in cold climes. But in India, we take it out and dry it. And suppose we don't do the removal of the wrinkles before hanging them to dry, we will find that the shirt has many wrinkles. The comparison is to that of the world, the seeing of the world. The seeing of the world by a seer, when we see the world, we see so many things. The phenomena is multiple, says Bhagavan. To Humphreys, when he is giving Upadesha to Humphreys, he says, phenomena is full of multiplicity. And the act of seeing the phenomena is also there. And there is the seer also. His Upadesha of ironing out to Humphreys is, don't focus on the multiplicity of phenomena, or not even on the act of seeing them, but only on the one who is responsible for all this, the one who is the seer. So, the multiple wrinkles, what the great ones do, see, when we iron out, when I was ironing out this multiple wrinkles in the shirt, what happened was, the underlying layer had a small bend, and when I had ironed the upper layer on it, a single wrinkle was there, single line wrinkle was there, which separated the cloth into two parts, and that could be easily ironed out. So what the great ones do, why the wrinkles and the ironing out? Because what appears as many, what happens to all the wrinkles when it is ironed out? They all merely become the shirt. They all vanish into the shirt. What appears to be so many wrinkles, some big, some small, some with straight lines and all that vanishes into the single texture of the shirt. While ironing, we find that when the bottom line, the shirt has the two layers, if that has a line, if it had not been placed straight, then the upper layer gets a single wrinkle. That is what the great ones and Vedanta does for us. They iron out everything. But how can they reveal the one? They know that to us, they are either a book or the form of a guru or the voice heard in YouTube. So they know, the teachers know that there is a limitation to expression. There is a limitation. Ekam, aksharam, hridi nirantaram, bhasate swayam, likyate katam. One of the devotees of Bhagavan gets a book from the ashram library. He is about to leave ashram bookshop. He is about to leave for his hometown. So he brings that book and asks Bhagavan, please write one aksharam. One aksharam you write in your hand. Whenever I see that, I will have dhyana of you. And Bhagavan writes this Ekashloki. Sri Ramana writes, she translates that into Telugu also. Ekam, that which is Ekam. It is one. Aksharam, it is indestructible. Hridi nirantaram bhasate swayam. It is akhanda. It is self-luminous. Likyate katam. How can it be written or expressed? That is the import of that verse. So the great ones are aware. See, one of the nuances of the scriptures, Bhagavan would say that the great teachers would mention the highest truth in the beginning itself. They won't take the reader or the practitioner or the sadhaka gradually. That may be there in some part of the work, but they will see to it that the truth is revealed right away. That is what happens in this work also. Why? Because the Kritopasaka, the one who has put in all the hard work and who is innocent, he should not be punished and made to wait. That is the intent, that the Kritopasaka, one who is ready for the truth, is given the truth right at the beginning, in the invocation itself. But then, what is this single wrinkle that the Vedanta and the Rishis create for us? We see multiplicity, huge multiplicity. We like this, we don't like that. We are this particular area which we are interested in. I am surely a banker. Between banking and family, I am a family person. I choose family. Between family and nation, between family and law, I see to it that the society and nation are given precedence. So many wrinkles, so many wrinkles. What does Vedanta, what does the Maharishi do for us? Makes us see the same multiplicity as just two in the beginning, as Kanban, Katshi, Drik, Drishya, the seer and the seen world. The seer and the seen world. So before we go into the verse meaning, it is important to understand that the multiplicity, the multiple wrinkles are now to be seen as the seer and the seen. And just between the two, knowing of these two, the great one is going to take us to the supreme. The Drik, Drishya or Kanban, Kanapadum Ulagu, the seer and the seen world. This one has to have some idea of before we go into the work. That every one of us has this Mula Anubhava, that we perceive huge number of things and various gradation of subtleties in them. But the great ones say, just see them as seer and seen world. Seer and seen world. Both seem to exist. Both seem to exist. Both seem to be real. To us, both seem to be real. Are they real? And what is the intent of the invocatory verse? It is to indicate the reality and indicate how we are to meditate or inquire into the reality. Sat pratyaya kinnu vihaya santam. Ulladala ulla unarvu ullado. Ulladala ulla unarvu ullado. Do we have a feeling that the seer and the seen, the seer and the seen world, they exist? Do we have a feeling, do we have a consciousness that the seer and the seen world exist without the existence of reality, without the existence of an underlying truth, an underlying reality between the subject and the object? The subject Shiva and the object Shiva are not as separate as they seem. They are connected, they are permeated, they are transcended by an underlying real Shiva, reality. There is a discussion which Lakshman Sharma brings to us, that what is the test for reality? What is the test that the reality. It is the same test that scientists have. What is the test for reality that scientists have? What is the test for truth that philosophers have? It should be true, it should be real at all times and all places. If it is true at some time, and if it is not true at other places, other times, it is not considered as truth by even scientists. But what is the difference? The difference is that the time and place of the scientists and philosophers seems to be only in the waking state. Only in the waking state they apply. The waking state experiences are alone covered in search for truth by them. The Vedantins and the Maharishi, they will not be satisfied if something is true within the waking state alone, because waking state is juxtaposed. It is a limited state which becomes, waking state itself becomes false in dream, which itself becomes false in deep sleep. False in the sense it does not exist there. If that whole set of experiences, they don't exist in dream, how can there be reality if you are closeted in the waking state alone? So, what is the enquiry that Bhagavan does with Lakshman Sharma is very interesting. He says that the sadhaka considers that he, the seer, and the seen world are real. But if they were to be real, if both the seer and the seen world, which is what we had seen as the single wrinkle, which is to be ironed out now, the single wrinkle of seer seen is going to be ironed out by the Maharishi for us. We have to do it ourselves, but then the pointers are given. The seer seen, if they are real, then they should be present in all the three states. But are they present? The seer and the seen world are present in the waking state. And they are present in a different form as seer seen in the dream state. In the waking state, with all sensory world, sensory time, sensory place, it is there. In dream world, different body, but still we are able to feel. We are able to feel anger, jealousy, hatred, fear, all that we are able to feel even in dream. And it appears so real in dream. There also the seer seen is there. But are the seer and seen present in deep sleep? They are absent in deep sleep. The division is absent in deep sleep. So that enquiry leaves us just with some information. We can't do anything about it. We can't do any sadhana with that. That the seer seen is a wrinkle present in the fabric of life, fabric of being, in the waking state and in the dream. But it is not present in the deep sleep. Now, what can we do about it? That is where the Rishi makes it clearer that what is the common factor in waking and dream which is absent in deep sleep. The common factor that is present in waking and dream, which creates this subject-object division, which creates this first single wrinkle, which suddenly appears as multiple wrinkle dress. It is the mind. Bhagavan says that in waking and dream, the mind is present, and in deep sleep, the mind is not present, and therefore this is the culprit. The mind is the culprit which creates this single wrinkle in the fabric of life, which suddenly manifests as multiple wrinkles. Everything is complicated, complex, chaos, and the rishis make it a single wrinkle of seer seen. That is present only when the mind is present. This division as seer and seen is present. When the mind is absent in deep sleep, this single wrinkle also vanishes. Not only are all the wrinkles removed, the single wrinkle of the division between seer and seen, the worshipper and worshipped, is also ironed out when the mind is eliminated, even in the waking state. Even in the conscious waking state, if one transcends the mind, lets go of the mind, one brings in the deep sleep directly here and now, and the fabric is completely ironed out. There is this incident which probably we have shared in some other satsang, but see, if you have to repeat a japa crores of times, then we have to repeat these incidents also many times for their essence to sink into us. In that sense, let me go back to the meeting between the great ones, Seshadri Swamigal and Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. It must have been in the Virupaksha days of Bhagavan. Bhagavan Ramana lives in Virupaksha cave up to 1916 or 17, then from 16 or 17 to 1922 in Skandashram. From 1922 onwards, after the mother's Mahanirvana, absorption in the self, the ashram is created. In those days, during summer, Bhagavan would come down to another cave called Mango Tree Cave. If I am not mistaken, it is there that this incident takes place, and one of the devotees of Bhagavan is present and he records. Please excuse me if I am not narrating the event in proper place there, but I am pointing out to the interaction. The interaction goes somewhat like this, that the great one, Seshadri Swamigal, his absorption in Arunachala was of such subtlety, was of such sukshmate, that whoever is near him, whatever thought that jiva takes, Seshadri Swamigal would know. The Seshadri Swamigal's consciousness is so merged with the universal, and he himself has no personal intent or desire, that he is able to feel what is the thought energy variation in the person standing nearby. And when he stands near to Bhagavan, Ramana Maharshi, he is not able to feel anything. There is no flutter. And he asks Bhagavan, why don't you think of Arunachala? Why don't you think of Arunachala? And Bhagavan irons out that single wrinkle in the fabric of life. He asks back, is there a division between the worshipper and the worshipped? Is there a division between the worshipper and the worshipped? Can the worshipped be the fullness of being if the worshipper were to be apart? If the worshipper or creation were to be apart, what happened to the fullness of being of the worshipped? Can there be any division in that fabric of consciousness, on that fullness of being, as worshipper and worshipped asks Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi? And Seshadri Swamigal immediately agrees, no, there cannot be a division in the Supreme. However, for me, Arunachala is real, says. Arunachala, the whole of that area is Arunachala only for him. And he does 3 pranams to Arunachala hill and goes. Arunachala dhyana is not put down, but the purpose for which the Maharishi has come is to spread the self knowledge. Tanmaya nishtai. In another verse, Bhagavan says the purpose for which he has come is to spread the Tanmaya nishtai. The self alone is that knowledge to spread. That is why I have been brought. So even though the Arunachala Nama was going on in him spontaneously, even as a child, and even though he has written the greatest possible bhakti, devotion verses on Arunachala, the prime purpose for which he has come is for delivering the meaning and the sadhana present in Ulladunarpadu, present in this single invocatory verse. So, Satpratyaya kinnu vihaya santam. Without the reality of existence, without the real supreme being, can there be a feeling, an unarvu, a consciousness of the subject and object being present? Is the first sentence. In Vedanta, they will say, if you take this mobile, then it is permeated by existence. This cover, this body, the silicon chips inside, everything is permeated by existence. And the whole creation is permeated by existence, Sad. And the seer is also permeated by existence. When a Maharani asks Bhagavan how to see the Supreme Being, how to see the Supreme Being in everyone, Bhagavan tells her, how to see except in yourself. No, she says, no, I want to see in that part of the wrinkle, in that part of the fabric, I want to see God, I want to see the Supreme Being. Then Bhagavan says that God is present both in the seer and in the seen and in the seer. Where else can you see except in the seer? If something is permeating you, if something is adhara for you, if something has filled you up, filled up the I thought, now how can the I thought know that as another? Only the I thought to remain still and feel the throb of the Supreme Being, that alone can be, and it cannot see the Supreme Being as an object. That is what Bhagavan says to that Maharani. The consciousness within, purged of thoughts, is felt as God. I am mentioning God as Saguna Upasana. The same will be called as the self, the self-attentive, self-luminous self, in the unmanifest nature of the Supreme. So, Satpratyaya kinnu vihaya santam. Is there a consciousness of subject-object division, see or seen world division, without a sadvastu that is an adhara for both? That one fabric which is already present, in which this wrinkle is apparently seen. It's only an appearance. What was all these days fought as happenings? If that did not happen, my whole life is gone. If this did not, why did this happen? Why did that happen? That wrinkle should not have been there. From that, the great ones make us just witness it. That it is a mere appearance in the Supreme Being. From something that is happening, the results of which are so important to us, how much we have, how much we don't have, how much others have, all this is now gone. There is only a gentle perception of the seer and the seen, and even that is a mere appearance in the Supreme Being. Satpratyaya kinnu vihaya santam. Without that santam, that sadvastu, vihaya, permeating the whole existence of subject and object completely, can there be a feeling that the subject exists or the object exists? Vihaya santam. Hridyesha chinta rahito hridakya. How is the sadvastu? How is its existence? Hridyesha chinta rahito hridakya. As the consciousness in the heart, chinta rahito, it is the mind that divides the fabric of existence as subject and object. Chinta rahito, free of the mind, that pure existence can be felt within us in the hridayam, and therefore that pure being is called hridayam. The pure being does not need a place. But for us to go inward, to turn inward into the subject, we are so enraptured and caught up in the objective experience. And the objective experience, the sensory world, arises after the subjective thought arises. There is this lady, a solicitor's daughter from Chennai, who comes, who asks Bhagavan, the teachings that you are telling, is it that we have to be quiet by doing self-inquiry? Why should we do self-inquiry? Bhagavan says, why should you do self-inquiry? Keep quiet directly, no? Then she says, to keep quiet, it is impossible. It is impossible to keep the mind quiet. Then Ramana says, that is why self-inquiry has been given. To still the mind, to still the subject from feeling the one division or the multiplicity of wrinkles, to still the subject, the who am I is given, so that you don't get carried away by the grass on the pastures outside the shed. The mind is like a cow, says Bhagavan, that it is so eager to have grass from the others' pastures. But then when it is shown the grass in its own stable, in its own shed, slowly the happiness, the real consciousness, the real existence is in the shed itself. Then that mind slowly comes inside like that cow. Here itself I am getting good grass. Then there will come a time, he says, when even if you drive it out, even if you go and make a speech, even if you go and do some cooking and others for those who have come, it won't remain there. It will come back to the shed. The activity does not make it remain there. Where to get this food? Where to get that food? No more of that. It will come back to the shed, because where is the luscious grass available? Where is the tasty stuff available? Where is the real stuff available? Real happiness is within. Once it learns this, it will never go out, he says. Now, that solicitor's daughter says that, is it that I should do self-inquiry and the whole world will become quiet because of that? Is this whole world only my thoughts? How can it be? I am such a small person. The world appears so huge, so many billions of light years across. Is it only my thought? Will the world become quiet? Bhagavan says, let the world inquire into its origin. You inquire into your origin. Let the object, the multiplicity, inquire where it came from. If it is possible, let it inquire. But you as the subject, the first wrinkle, first side of the single wrinkle, you inquire from where you came. Then she asks, she is the solicitor's daughter, no? So, Munagal Venkataramayaji, ji, the author of talks, he is so careful in introducing the person also. He says she is a solicitor's daughter. Why he should introduce like that? Because she is asking very pertinent questions. She asks, does that mean that I need not bother about the world? That there is a disconnect? I am not compassionate. Let it go to dogs. Let all others go to dogs. Let me alone get mukti. Is it like that? Then Bhagavan has to come out. From what you say, let world inquire into its source. It appears as though I am so selfish that let all of them go to dogs. Let me alone get mukti. Hardly the way to get mukti. So far as you feel you are a singular person who has to enjoy an ice cream, hardly you can get, unless you understand why the jiva is in suffering. As the jiva, how can you come to mukti? So the solicitor's daughter asks that pertinent question, is this being completely careless, completely unmindful of what happens to others? Bhagavan says, no, it's not like that. That both the world and you, were you present in deep sleep? Was the subject and object division present in deep sleep? No. Only when you wake up, the thoughts arise and the subject and object rise and flourish. So what else can both the subject and object be except thought forms? They are all thought forms. Your body is a thought form. Billions of light years is a thought form. Kala is a thought form. Desha is a thought form. All is how that gases have solidified into the planets and the stars. It is thought which has appeared to have solidified, which appears to have solidified into the subject and multiplicity of object. But how is that sadvastu present inside you? Hridyesha chinta rahito hridakya. The sadvastu, the reality which is underlying the subject and object, is present as that consciousness free of thought, which Bhagavan has said. How is God felt? The consciousness purged of thoughts is felt as God. He says, then everybody, the reality of everybody is directly felt here. The assurance that this God is within everyone. He is the prime doer. Nobody is a doer. They are all being brought to the same light. That anubhava allows you to be inward turned. It is not out of lack of compassion. It is because of knowing the karuna of that Ishvara, that he is permeating everyone and allowing them to feel that permeation through sadhana. What is a prayer? God is always karuna, always full of compassion. But we are able to feel it when we do a prayer. We are able to feel it when we do dhyana. We are able to feel that ever-present karuna when we do atma vichara. In fact, we merge into that ever-present karuna in this self-realization. What else can it be? God alone is, God's compassion alone is, and that which is what you are. Hridyesha chinta rahito hridakya. The Supreme Being is present within each one of us as that consciousness which is completely bereft of thoughts. Hridyesha chinta rahito hridakya. Then comes the powerful blow from Bhagavan. Katam smaramastam ameyamekam. Ameyam is the division as subject and object. He is not present in that consciousness. Katam smaramastam. How to remember, how to do dhyana, how to meditate, how to invoke, how to pray, how to praise, how to be blessing. Let me bless the world. If there is something divided as seer and seen, only we can bless, no? So, katam smaramastam, katam smarami, how to remember. The remembrance and forgetfulness are supposed to be one of the ways in which consciousness is root division of consciousness by Ishvara is there. Both are works of Ishvara. It is said in tradition that when you remember something, Ishvara has allowed you to remember. When you forget something, Ishvara has allowed you to forget. Why worry? Remember only the Ishvara. Do dhyana only of Ishvara. But here, to do dhyana, to remember, there is no division in consciousness as subject and object for the subject to remember. Hridyesha chinta rahito hridakya katam smaramastam ameyamekam aprameya. Without the division as subject and object, that consciousness is present within each one of us. Each one of us is itself blown apart. See, one of the beauties of this invocatory verse is that we can go through all the verses and then come back again. So let us do a little bit of that. Let me take one of the verses in the body and see how it is connected to the see, I just suddenly said that there is no number of people. There is no number of persons to remember this is so and so, that is so and so, this is my friend, that is. There is no division in the ameyam, aprameya vastu. That is driven through in a verse, one of the verses of the Ulladinar, somewhere in the region of 10 to 22. In that area, there is a verse which says that only after the first person arises, the second and third persons arise. If you inquire into the truth of the first person, then that first person is dismantled. If you inquire into the truth of the first person is dismantled, then automatically the second and third persons vanish in that singular fabric of consciousness. Who is that first person? That first person He is the first person in creation. When you inquire, for whom is this thought? Whenever you get the thought of another person, I am the first person, the other person, it may be a divine entity, it may be an evil entity, it may be an average entity. Doesn't matter. If so far as the division is there, then I am not coming to the true existence. So I have to inquire, for whom is this thought of Satyanarayana Swami? For whom is this thought of Ramana Bhagavan? For whom is this thought of so and so? For me. Who am I? Then I come to that one fabric which is the Adhara for this I and that I. Therefore, Hridyesha Chinta Rahito Hridakya. There is no thought as first person and second person. However divine the other person may be, as Bhagavan says of Arunachala, why he is not meditating on Arunachala? In that Sadvastu, the division between Arunachala and himself vanishes. Bhagavan says in Aksharamanamala, which is a bhakti verse, Ninan Arappuli Nidangali Mayamai Nindridum Nilayarul Arunachala. Let this division as you and me, let that vanish and let that ever present Satchitananda, the real happiness, let that alone flourish as my nature, as your nature. There is no me and you. So that is why this is beyond description. Katam smaramastam ameyamekam. Tasya smriti. To remember that sadvastu, that one fabric, without the multiplicity wrinkles, without the single wrinkle, the singular fabric of consciousness existence, of existence alone, katam smaramastam ameyamekam. Tasya smriti. To do dhyana on that, to remember that. Tatra dridaiva nishta is for you to be that one fabric. Is for the one who has started meditating on Ulladhanarpadu to be one, to be having the Sayujya, to be oneness, as Bhagavan was replying and indicating to Seshadri Swamigal. One should be in that one fabric of existence consciousness where the I, Bhagavan's second death experience happens somewhere during his stay in Virupaksha cave, and somewhere before 1917, must have been after 1911. He and Vasudeva Shastri, one of the devotees, they are coming. There is a slope down from Virupaksha cave which leads up to Pacheman Koil. Pacheman Koil is in that place where the local road joins the main road and the Velur road. In that corner, in that joining place in the Girivalam, we get Pacheman Koil. There, Bhagavan has come and had an oil bath, and he is going back to Virupaksha cave. And Vasudeva Shastri is with him. And Bhagavan says he had this ailments. What ailment? This happening of fainting fit. The fainting fits would come, Tale Chakkar, Noka, then again that is gone. But this was very deep and serious. And he felt that the body is going to drop. So he goes and sits on the rock, on a boulder, and he can feel his physical heart stop. The blood pumping organ, the physical heart stops. And the blood flow is stopped. But then this Purana, the I, the true being, which he has identified with in his enlightenment experience, that never leaves, that is always present as an identity. So he says that is going on. This Purana is going on. He can actually see the body stop. He's not having any reaction to it. Not only that, he says, I could feel Vasudeva Shastri hold my body and sob. See the detachment. See the detachment of that consciousness. No hurry to come and console him. Nothing. The consciousness understands that being with the Supreme, is far, far more efficacious than any of the interactions we can have, which are normally called as etiquette, culture, good behavior. All that, we understand that all that is included in abiding in the self. In abiding in that consciousness, he is able to feel. He is narrating. He is able to feel Vasudeva Shastri cry, hold the body, but there is no anxiety. Let me get up, use the hand. Smarana is still there. We can actually see these experiences. The other day, we were sitting in the morning satsang and we were in the self-inquiry part. So the consciousness, the I is now submerged in the consciousness. There is an attendant to my mother and she is a sweet little person. She had come a few minutes before, unusually, and she had done 2-3 knocks, and she knocked so delicately so as not to disturb. But then where were we? We were in that oneness where these body parts are not to be are found to be unreal. They don't exist. Only the consciousness and the ego subservient to that is there. So in 2-3 minutes the alarm went off, the satsang ended, so I came out. She also practices Atma Vicharam, our help person, and she shares it with Amma also. And I told her what exactly happens at that time, that the practice is for the I thought to be submerged in this Purana, to be submerged in the one fabric. So even the eyes, ears, the data may come, but one is not to use, one is not to act, one is only to understand that this consciousness is the supreme. I am one with, this is the thing. Then that period, the sadhana, the thing was done, then that Purana is continuous, it never goes. But then the efficacy of that period, it reveals how Bhagavan would have felt in his second death experience, that he can actually feel, but he is not using the body. His consciousness has not died. It is one with that supreme being and is able to feel also. But then there is no anxiety to use those upadhis, to use those wrinkles. Only through this upadhi, the sensory world is seen. What is left to use that upadhi? It is set of atoms belonging to Bhumi. Now, what is the happiness, real happiness that one can get through those upadhis? That reality is understood. Therefore, Bhagavan's words, Katam smaramastam ameyamekam, how opening the door is going to be the key. Without this Purana, opening the door is different. With this Purana, everything is fine. Doing or not doing is also the same, because that bodily activity is going to stop at some time. But this Purana, which you are one with, is never going to go away. That is the reality. Katam smaramastam ameyamekam. Tasya smriti, to meditate on that supreme being, is tatra dridaiva nishta, is to be with this Purana, is to be with the self-attentive I. And Bhagavan does not stop there. He says, hold this Purana and keep quiet. Hold this Purana and be still. Then this Purana also will quieten down. It is not Sat Chitta, it is Sat. In Sat Chit, in this Purana, there is inside outside. There is inside outside. In that Sat, then the stones too are full of life. The stones which are apparently without consciousness are also full of the Sat, which itself is Chit. Sattayahi Chit, Chittayahi Aham. Hold the Spurana and keep quiet. Spurana has to be held to completely de-link from the vasanas related to the wrinkles. All the wrinkles, iron them out, just have subject-object. Subject-object wrinkle, remove it by taking the relative subject to the source, so that the one fabric of consciousness throbs and shines as I. But hold that throbbing consciousness and keep quiet. Then the throbbing consciousness merely quietens down into Sadvastu. And what Bhagavan means when he says, the stones which you are seeing is full of life, that is the reality with which we are one. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.